It's to breathe spirit into. Right?
Yes.
If you're trying to get that spirit to come back to you, you're defeating the purpose. You want to
Yes.
put it to other people. In other
Yes.
words, it needs to not be about you.
Yes.
Make it about others. That's
Mhm.
what's inspiring. When you focus it about them and about what's possible for them, where they can go, what you see in them,
Mhm.
that's inspiring. That's what people find to be just so exciting. This is the Leadership Foundry podcast. I'm your co-host this week, Brandon Smith, and I'm joined this week with my other co-host and co-founder, Randy Hain. Randy, how are you today, my friend?
It is a great day in the neighborhood. Good to see you, Brandon.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. Well, we're getting ready to go into the next year. 2025 is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And as you and I were talking about this, we circled around this interesting word, inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And reflecting on 2024, I can't say that I've seen a lot of inspiration from our leaders, and not as much as we would like, just leaders in general, not any particular kind of leader.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a real need and opportunity for inspiration just in general. And we thought, what a great topic for us to take on as we move into 2025. So I'm going to hand the baton over to you, my friend. When you think of inspiration and think about this topic and the need for this topic, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I love the topic. It's an interesting word because my mind is going all over the place with, there are a couple of manifestations of this I think we need to consider today on the show. One is the deeply personal, maybe quiet form of it, thinking about inspiration, like how as an individual, how are you inspired? What do you do with that? But then as leaders, we've got to think about how do we offer inspiration to our people? How do we offer inspiration to our team? So it might be interesting today if we have time to kind of explore both aspects of that. I'll volunteer and maybe start with kind of maybe the personal side and toss the baton to you if that's okay.
Sure.
So, I guess if I'm going to have to put together a loose definition of inspiration, it's when we're mentally stimulated to do or feel something. Like you feel this mental, like you've connected the dots on, okay, I have observed something, I've heard something, I've felt something, and I need to go do or maybe feel a certain way about it. So to me, that's kind of like a basic definition of inspiration. And when I think about this idea of inspiration, let's first talk about how do we put ourselves into the right frame of mind to be inspired. And you know why I bring this up, Brandon? We have talked so often about, technology and how fast we're going and we're going from meeting to meeting. I doubt a lot of our listeners are really sitting here thinking, how do I become more inspired? Because we're too busy. We're too busy. As you say all the time, everything's urgent all the time. So what if we just take a second and talk about what does it take to put yourself in the place to get more inspired? So here's some ideas. I think just this idea of I want to be more fully present. I want to be with you in this conversation. I want to be present with my technology turned off, my phone turned off in my pocket. I want to be with you in this moment. I want to pay attention and listen. I want to listen carefully to what you're saying. I want to pay attention to the nuance. I want to listen for nuggets of wisdom that you may share with me. I want to then, after I've taken this in, I'd like to be reflective. I want to think a little bit about what you've shared with me, what I've observed from you, maybe something I saw you do or witnessed you do. And then maybe I guess the last sort of step to really be ready to be inspired is to be willing to be courageous to do something with the inspiration that we've just experienced. So I guess where I'm starting, and then I want to throw the ball to you, is what do we need to do to put ourselves in a place where we can actually experience this wonderful thing called inspiration? Those are my ideas. What do you think about that?
I think those are some great starting places, Randy. And I love the way you've broken it out into some very practical approaches to this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with ourselves first. And then we can start talking about how we can inspire others, because we definitely need that. So let's start self first. So I've heard in the past that inspiration comes from the root, and I think it's Latin. Randy, you can correct me on this, but I believe it actually comes from the root to breathe spirit into. So
Mhm.
we're going to either breathe spirit into somebody, or it's going to be kind of breathed into us. And when I think about inspiration, it's a feeling. You get this
Mhm.
kind of this. It's hard to describe. You're inspired.
Mhm.
There's this excitement. There's this energy. There's this. I want to go do something with this thing, and
Yes.
which speaks to your point around courage to actually then take action on it. But let's
Mhm.
let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about how do we get there. Now
Mhm.
I will tell you, you know this all too well, my friend. 2024 has been a rough and tumble year for me. It still continues to be a little rough and tumble. We lost
Mhm.
our oldest dog last week, so that's a
Uh,
little tough. And
yes.
so if I was, a phone battery, this year I've been more like either hanging out around kind of the yellow or the red for
Mhm.
pretty much most of the year.
Mhm.
So I can say I definitely need some inspiration. And when I think about how I would like to go about doing that, I think a lot of the things you mentioned are brilliant starting places.
Mhm.
I think even finding time to get inspired by other ideas, other thoughts, maybe listening to podcasts,
Mhm.
reading books, spending time in prayer or meditation.
Mhm.
I also find that I'm a little more open to those things if my body is well exercised, and so
Mm.
even just walking on the treadmill for 45 minutes, not very long, I find that actually takes kind of knocks a lot of the rust off and makes me a lot more open to just new ideas, just feeling more excited and motivated.
Yeah.
Because if we want to be creative, we want to go do something new, we want to
Mhm.
grow,
Mhm.
all those things require some spark. And
Mhm.
we've got to get that. We got to find that.
Mhm.
And what I love about the way where you took this, Randy, was it's all about creating that space for that spark,
Mhm.
creating that space. So those are some things that I've started putting in place. I want to continue to do that because I've got some exciting things that I want to work on this year, that you and I want to work on this year, that
Yeah.
involve some creativity. And inspiration is going to be a necessary ingredient if we want that creative work to come alive. So those are some of my reactions to what you said.
Fantastic. I love just the additional, bigger path that you're taking us down. I want to call something out, and we're friends, Brandon, and you've been very open about just the challenges with your dog, and you and I share our lives openly. We talk a lot about everything that's going on in our lives,
Yeah.
and I think it's important and really really even critical for us to recognize that inspiration can come both from adversity and success. So, we both have lost, loved ones, pets, family, friends. We both have experienced failure in our lives. We've had challenges that just seem insurmountable, roadblocks, walls we couldn't get around. We've also had success. We've been very blessed with success in our lives. But my point is, each of those moments, those experiences, can create inspiration. I can't speak for you, but I know when you talked about your oldest dog, when you and I have spoken about that, you have often talked about just the great life that your family has had with this dog. How much that pet meant to you. That's inspiration. When I think about my mother's passing 15 years ago, not to, I know we would get off the topic of passing and death, but my mother passed away, and I love my mother dearly, but I chose, and her family and friends chose to be inspired by the life that she led.
Yeah.
So, as you're a business person, a leader listening to this today, don't always think of inspiration as coming from the good times, the good things, the things that are happy and joyful. Those are great, and you need them. But sometimes adversity can spur you on to inspiration, just as we said, success can. So I think it's looking at life, taking what it gives you, and maybe trying to mine the gold nuggets from the struggles you're having, but also the good things you're having. I'll give you three quick examples, Brandon. Many, many years ago, and I wrote about this in one of my books, my son Alex, who has autism, he's 27. he had a chance to be a lector in our parish, which means he was reading scripture from the Old Testament. And he had trained for this. A lot of people were counseling him and helping him. And then one Sunday morning, he got up in front of 1,000 people in our parish, and he read from Deuteronomy, which was a pretty long, hard read. And he did it flawlessly. It was such a moment of inspiration. What a triumph. But it also made me understand, and I wrote about this, a lot of families don't have a chance to see that kind of success out of their special needs children. But in this moment, it was so inspiring for my family and the people in the audience to hear a young man with all these challenges do something so special. Just the other day, I was in front of a group of student athletes from the SEC, and I was talking to the group about gratitude, and I was talking about, yes, thank you notes. You know how much I love thank you notes. And one of the students raised her hand, and it was a very special moment. And she said, "Mr. Hain, I just wanted to share, I read your book, Being Fully Present." I guess one of her coaches had given it to her. And she said, "It really inspired me and helped me. And I want you to know that I've gotten very, very excited about the idea of one day starting an orphanage in her native Guatemala." She's from Guatemala. And she said, "Oh, by the way, I've written you a thank you note. Can I give it to you right now?" She comes up to the front of the room with a thank you note. And I gave her a big hug. And I looked around and I said, "First of all, to the rest of you, this was not scripted. This was totally unexpected." But I said, "What do you think I'm going to be doing to help this young lady going forward? I'll do anything she asks." My point is, she inspired me. I guess I maybe inspired her a little bit through the writing. So you can find inspiration anywhere, any place. It can be adversity, it can be blessings. I just wanted to make that fine point. And I'd love to get your take on that. Do you see it that way?
Oh, Randy, I think you're spot on. I think you absolutely, that's very true.
Yeah.
And then I love the fact you can find inspiration watching other people overcome things. I've enjoyed one of my highlights was my youngest kiddo, who's a senior in high school, is big into theater. So watching him perform, so much fun because he does stuff that I couldn't do, and it's just exciting to watch him just do that, and that's inspiring.
Yes.
But you're right. Loss can be a form of inspiration once you kind of get through that grieving process.
Sure.
Because I even found myself thinking last week on what a great dog Ellie was, and thinking about what was it that made her so great. And I actually made a little list of some of those things.
Love that.
And what was so exciting and inspiring about that was to think about how I could live those out would bring me closer to her, which was so nice. And you could do that whether it's a pet, or a loved one, someone or somebody that's passed that was really close to you. How could you live out your life in a way that would honor their life?
Yes.
It also be a form of inspiration. And it was exciting to write that out. And then you and I are our typical way. I tried to make it very practical. What can I do to kind of do that? But it felt good, and I felt more connected. And that was really exciting. So I think you're right. I think loss can definitely be a form of inspiration once we navigate through those waters.
Well, you made a great point a minute ago about, this has been a difficult year for you and many of us. Just business has been really difficult.
Yeah.
I think we're all a lot more optimistic about the coming years. I know I am. Well, let's not just dismiss the challenges of 2024. Let's reflect, look back and say, okay, what did I learn? What are some of those moments of adversity that I can use to fuel me and inspire me to do something different and better in 2025? So, again, it's really easy, and we're all human, we all do it, where we may tend to wallow in the moment and say, "Oh, this really sucks. This is terrible for me. I hate this." Okay, you're human. That's a feeling that we all have. But what if we say, "But wait a minute, what am I getting out of this that actually could be a spark that's going to help me do something better and different in the future?" So again, not to beat a dead horse, but I think we agree that we've got to look for inspiration wherever we can find it. And it may feel like our lowest moment, but that could help us have our best moment in the future.
Yeah, and I think for folks listening, what's beautiful about the picture that Randy's really painting for us is it can come in any way, any place, anywhere, any form, and there's no right or wrong about it.
Right.
The real answer is you. Is it a spark for you? Does it kind of bring you some a little bit of energy and say, wow, yeah, I'm excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
Excited to watch this person who struggled achieve this great thing. Excited about trying to be closer to loved ones by honoring their life in living my life that way. Excited about this new idea that I want to put into practice,
Mm-hmm.
or this new approach that I want to have to how I want to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
The key is, do you feel that spark? It's inspiration is a feeling, it's an energy that wants to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so then again, to Randy's point, then have the courage to then act on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. So Randy, I want to take this conversation, I want to pivot it to the second part,
Sure.
because after all, this is Leadership Foundry, and we're all about helping leaders
Mm-hmm.
grow and help them serve and support all those in their ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, there was so much just heads down this year
Mm-hmm.
on all the clients I was working with. Their numbers were not good, and they were just really just heads down, kind of focusing on just kind of keep things together.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't doing a lot of inspiring, and I think that's a real opportunity for all of us as leaders. How could we be more inspiring
Mm-hmm.
next year? I've got some thoughts on that, but I'm going to start it by asking you a question, Randy.
Sure.
When you see a leader that's inspiring, what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the traits or components that you notice from her or him that make
Mm-hmm.
them inspiring?
So I love that question, and I just want to maybe kind of reflect a bit with you on what do I find inspiring. You asked me that, but I'm just kind of thinking about what are specific examples. And the thing that just jumped out into my mind was it has to be authentic. If you are going out of your way to create inspiration, it can often come across as fake. So I find that the most inspirational acts that really move me are authentic. They often demonstrate vulnerability. They are usually connected to humility, some form of humility. Maybe they're someone being generous, someone being grateful, someone being joyful. Often I'm inspired by the acts of kindness of other people. So I guess what I'm describing for you, when I think about what inspires me in leaders that I really respect and know well, it's these subtle and sincere practices of what sounds like virtuous behavior, I guess. And I find this incredibly inspiring. But you know what's really great about this? What I've just described, and I'd love to get your take on it, is this is a very simple formula. You don't have to go off to a 2-day retreat to come up with something to inspire the troops. You can show up at work on Monday and simply be authentic, be vulnerable, do the right thing at work, be kind to your people, develop your people, listen to your people. Show them the right example to follow, model the right behavior. These are all things, little simple acts that when you piece them together will inspire your team to higher performance. So one of the things that you and I talk about sometimes with our clients is we're always trying to get you to go from what's acceptable, sort of like the table stakes kind of performance, to excellent performance. We want to inspire you to go from basic to bridging the delta to excellence. So as a leader listening to this today, you don't have to do anything elaborate. It's simply showing up and letting people see the real you, doing the right thing with courage. I think that's a great way for us to kind of think about how do we as leaders show up and be more inspirational. Now, what do you think about that?
I think that's great. What I love about the way you've kind of captured that is one of the ways we see people as inspiring is when they live a life of integrity based on a set of core values.
Yes.
Right? They got their set of core values. It could be kindness, generosity, compassion. It could be courage. It could be do the right thing, whatever it happens to be, and there's an integrity behind it. In other words, regardless of what adversity they're facing, they stick to those values. They don't trade them in. They don't trade them off. They do that. That's inspiring, right? We love
very inspiring.
seeing
Yes.
leaders do that. That in the face of adversity, they stick to their values.
Yes.
That's very inspiring. So that's a way of living. And I love that. The way how we choose to live our life can be inspiring by thinking about the values that are important to us
Hmm.
and modeling that. Maybe it's making sure that we're carving out time with our family and we're really intentional about that. We model that for our teams, on the importance of work-life balance, or the importance of having some of those tough conversations, even though they may not be popular with senior executives,
Yes.
on investing in infrastructure, even though it might cost us revenue or profitability today. We do
Hmm.
that. So having some of those tough conversations. So I think the way we live can be inspiring. The other one I want to offer to us too is the vision that we paint can be inspiring.
Absolutely.
So that's also something that in the last probably 4 or 5 years, I haven't seen that as much as I wish I had.
Hmm.
We,
Hmm.
we tend to not be focusing so much on where we're going and casting this inspiring vision as much as we are focused on all the stuff coming our way and just trying to put out all the fires.
Hmm.
We're in firefighter mode much more than building mode.
Right.
And to be able to cast a vision and say, team, this is where when we sit here today in January 2026, I want us to be able to say we've done this.
Hmm.
There was a famous theologian at Emory's theology school. He used to have a beautiful saying. As leaders, you want to provide people two things: hope and handles.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love that. Hope is the inspiring vision. Here's where we're trying to go over the next 12 months, and handles. And here's what we need to be doing, you need to be doing today or this week to start moving us that way. So it's kind of taking an inspiration and then pairing it with an action. Because
Yes.
that's the beautiful thing about inspiration. Once we get that ingredient put into the mix, folks are ready to take action. And we're ready to take action when we feel inspired. So that's the other one I would also add to this, Randy, is,
Hmm.
it's how we live our life, which you painted so masterfully. And it can also be the vision that we paint for the team.
One of the things I love all of that, and if I were to just have an addendum or maybe piggyback a little bit, I think it's important that as leaders, as we start to cast our thoughts into how do I inspire my people, how do I get us rallied around a vision, whatever it is, it's very important that we do not attach an expectation of affirmation to this. We don't need, you may never have your inspirational moments acknowledged by others, and that is perfectly okay. So you may give the speech of your life. You may cast the most beautifully crafted vision. You may go out and save someone from a burning house. Bully for you. Great. Thank you. But just my point is, if you do it for the accolades, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You should inspire because it comes from someplace within you where you really, really want to do the right thing. You want to, as you say, live with integrity, live with authenticity. But just a subtle point: be careful not to attach it to the need for accolades and affirmation. So, just a subtle add-on to what you said.
And so let's take what Randy said and apply it to our definition earlier. It's to breathe spirit into.
Yes.
Right? If you're trying to get that spirit to come back to you, you're defeating the purpose. You want to put it to other people. In other words, it needs to not be about you.
Yes.
Make it about others. That's what's inspiring. When you focus it about them and about what's possible for them, where they can go, what you see in them, that's inspiring. That's what people find to be just so exciting. And they're going to want more of that, and they're going to want to follow you.
Yes.
So to add some more sentence stems to this, just to make it even easier, if you're looking for quick ways to inspire, maybe it's a team member, maybe it's a family member over the holidays, and they're kind of down in the dumps. Great sentence stems like "I believe in you" is a great starting place for inspiration. I'm proud of you. I know you can do this. Like I see something in you you don't see. That's inspiring.
Yes.
So using those kinds of phrases can also be great ways to give people that extra energy, that extra boost as they're climbing up whatever hill they may be climbing.
So I guess an example would not be that is your seventh cookie, you need to stop. That's not an example.
Not be inspiring. Probably not motivating. Could potentially do the job of getting them to stop.
Yes.
But they may never eat a cookie again if you do that publicly.
I was thinking just a few minutes ago, when I was really drilling down in my memory banks about the leaders that I admire the most, I just remember so vividly being in the room with leaders who admitted failure, admitted that, you know what, I blew it. This year was, we missed the deadline. We missed our goal, as we know we've seen so many times this year. But those same leaders also saying, but let me tell you what I learned from that. Let me tell you what I'm going to do differently in the future. Let me tell you what's going to be different next time. Follow me. We're going to get there. I find that to be incredibly inspiring when a leader is willing to own a mistake and a failure. And even though we can talk about this and be clinical about it, that's pretty rare in business. There's something that seeps into our mindset that it's very uncomfortable to admit that we fail. It's very uncomfortable to admit that we're struggling. You and I both know, Brandon, everybody knows. Everybody knows everything. There are no secrets in business most of the time. So if you know that you have struggled, you've made a mistake, you've missed the deadline or the goal, as a leader, think about owning that in front of your people, acknowledge what you could have done differently, talk about what you're going to do differently in the future. That could be a wonderful way to inspire the troops. They already know, just own it. Anyway, I just wanted to add that because I find those to be some of the most inspirational leaders I know.
Yeah, and then it correlates to trust. We are inspired and we trust people a lot more when we feel like there's an honesty, transparency, authenticity, and integrity in that. That they're not afraid to say I made a mistake and here's what I'm going to do differently. They don't kind of cover it up. They don't hide it. Now we're coming off of a fairly rough and tumble political season where I think regardless of where we sit on the aisles, we can safely say that there wasn't a lot of honesty, transparency, authenticity necessarily in that process. So we're hungry for it. And that starts with each of us. So be another way to do this. And maybe this is inadvertently a form of inspiration in its own way. Be the leader in the world in 2025 that you need, that you would follow, that you think the world needs more of. Write that out. What are those characteristics? Randy's shared already some of the characteristics that he finds very inspiring. What are they for you? Write those down and then ask yourself, what would it look like if I led my life based on this code? And just by following that, hopefully that makes you feel better, but it's going to inspire the people around you because we love to see people that have such dedication to how they live their life that they're just unflappable. That can be so inspiring in itself. So that could be another way to get you ready for 2025.
Well, and something that we're talking around and all about, but I'll just kind of bring it home for us. One of the great things about inspiration is you can't control the behavior. You can control your behavior. You can't control what they're doing, but you can control your response to what they're doing. Inspiration is one of those things that, as you sit here right now, as you're listening to this, you can do something about being inspirational. You can do something about being inspired by others. A lot of what we've talked about today is completely within your control. So think about how you're going to both receive it, give it, live in it, do something with it that's positive. But anyway, this is something that I think all leaders should dwell on a little bit more in their thinking time.
Randy, great conversation, my friend. I definitely needed it. My battery's still a little low. It's been a rough and tumble, as I've said that phrase a couple times already.
Yeah.
Because even with my aging parents, we've had a lot of challenges with them this year as well. So it's been a little rough. So I'm not kind of ready right now to take on the charge tomorrow, but I am ready to start writing my list. I am ready to start to outline what are the things I need to do over the break to get myself really ready for 2025. So I not only feel good about the life that I'm living and leading, but hopefully I'm using that to pour into others.
There was something that we did for a lot of shows, and I'd love to just see if we could end the show today with this. And I'll throw it to you first, and then I'll finish up if you want. But what is something that you want to leave the audience with today? What is something that you just want to kind of leave as a parting word of wisdom? Because this may be the last time they see us this year, but I'm curious, what's your parting word of wisdom today?
So I'm going to go back to something you said, Randy. I love when you kind of talked about loss can be a form of inspiration. And I've got my list I've already written down of things around my dog Ellie that was inspiring for me. But I love the idea of thinking about maybe someone that inspired you or how you want to live your life based on what you've seen, and really writing that down and then turning it into behaviors. That's what I've been working through. I think that's a great start. I'm going to continue to do that because that's exciting to me. I am actually excited to start to live that out. And then I've also found, just to help get my battery a little charged, I've got to do a little better job taking care of myself too. So just finding that time on the treadmill, in addition to my regular workout schedules, I like just walking on the treadmill. It's a great way for me to get some of that um, noise out of my head and get me ready to inspire. So I think there's another piece to that too. So those are the two that really stood out for me. It's kind of getting ready, and then having a kind of a direction that I want to go in, like a model that just inspires me, or a way of living. So those are mine.
I love how you wove self-care into this foundational way of preparing for inspiration. I love that you did that. That's very powerful. I guess, I've been thinking a lot about a book I've read and reread a couple of times. It's titled Created for Greatness. And the book is by Alexandra Havard, Havard. It's my favorite leadership book. It's fairly short, but Havard is a leading authority on virtuous leadership. He's written about it for most of his career. Amazing writer and just very inspirational. But in this book, he talks about the two virtues that are most critical for leaders. And he talks a lot about inspiration in the book. And I find these virtues, when practiced well, to be great things for us to try to model from a behavior perspective. The first virtue that he talks about is magnanimity. And magnanimity is, we have all been, the seed of greatness has been planted within all of us. We all have an opportunity to pursue that greatness. That magnanimity is the virtue of pursuing that greatness. And so we all have this opportunity every day to be great, to do great things, to live up to our potential, which you've heard Brandon talk about. So magnanimity in leaders is fantastic, but it's not enough. Leaders also have to pursue humility. And the way that Havard defines humility is living in the service of other people. So I guess what I will leave you with today as a way to think about virtuous behavior that will lead to this inspiration that we've been talking about is practice magnanimity. Figure out what is your call to greatness. Try your best every day to reach your potential and beyond, but also make sure that you're doing it to help other people. Do it in the service of others. So magnanimity and humility are my two virtues of the day that I would leave that will help you on the road to be more inspiring as a leader.
Randy, fantastic. Well, regardless of what you heard today, the key is, with all of our Leadership Foundry podcasts, what's that one takeaway? Something you can put in place starting tomorrow that's going to help you and your teams thrive, particularly as we move into 2025. So here's to a great year. Here's to an inspiring year.